Hey now, good morning. Happy Thursday, PASW staff, clients, and friends joining us. So no new assignment. I was off Monday, so hopefully you guys got a well-deserved rest. But do want to go back because we looked a few weeks ago at Star Wars. We revisited that. Want to go back and look at one of my personal favorite childhood movie, and we're going to have a lot of fun. And you guys did a great job. We'll see the results that you guys did a few years ago tomorrow. But let's go back and look at The Rocketeer.
Rocketeer is a Disney film directed by Joe Johnston, who got his start as a visual effects artist with George Lucas in a lot of in Star Wars, and also Raiders of the Lost Ark with Spielberg. So he was kind of started as a visual effects guy, and then got into directing with Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, which kind of his big one, and then Jumanji and Jurassic Park 3. So Joe Johnston directed it, and this is based on a comic book, The Rocketeer, based on a comic book from 1983, written by Dave Stevens, inspired by pulp characters and from people from the 1930s to the 50s. So this is written in the 80s, and then starting in 86, they start pitching this idea of making the comic book into a movie, but it takes several years for Disney to say, okay. It's funny because all we do today is make comic book, remakes, and it's so boring. I mean, fun, but back then they did not want to adapt comic book series. So, they were ahead of their time. It took several years for negotiations because they were like, no one's going to want to see a comic book, superhero comic book movie. So, yeah. So I guess they kind of. And The Rocketeer was big, but it wasn't as big as people hoped. The budget was about 40 million. 35 to 40 million, makes about 46 million. So not that people, I think it's kind of got a cult status a little bit, but also in 1991, what other movies came out? I mean, it probably got overshadowed because I think the same weekend Terminator 2 comes out, that same weekend in 91. So, that's going to take everything else away. Also, City Slickers comes out, and that's big. Point Break comes out. And Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, those were huge blockbusters. 91, probably the biggest thing that comes out in 91, just music-wise, because we talk about, it's a music class. Nirvana's Nevermind. We did a whole class on Nirvana and the grunge scene. And so that is going to dominate. So the grunge scene in the 90s, that's mostly going to dominate music in the 90s with Nirvana's album Nevermind. So the start of the grunge era is going on musically. But this will have no grunge score for this assignment, just so you know. So Rocketeer is set in 1938 LA, tells the story of Cliff Secord, played by Billy Campbell. They wanted Johnny Depp, but then everyone wants Johnny Depp, right? And they wanted several other actors, Kevin Costner, but they went with Billy Campbell, who actually does a great job and has that old Hollywood look, I think. So he's a stunt pilot, and he happens to stumble upon in the airfield this rocket-powered jetpack. And this jetpack, you can, and there's people, I think, today flying with jetpacks. There's all these stories that I'm reading. I'm not sure what that has to do with, but there's a guy in the movie that's actually plays Howard Hughes, and both Howard Hughes and the FBI are hunting for this missing jetpack. This jetpack happens to be in the airfield where Cliff works at. So he's involved in this kind of conundrum where these people are after Cliff and the jet and the rocket pack. And there's a whole story with Timothy Dalton as kind of the Errol Flynn character, and he's the Nazi operative. and has stole it from Howard Hughes. A lot of these events, some of them really happened in LA back in the late 30s, and so some of it is based on real events and people. But it's so Cliff has this rocket, and of course he's dating the lovely Jennifer Connelly. She was 20 in this role. She had done a few movies, but this really set her into the main stage. Kind of based on Betty Page, in the comic book, but they changed her name to Jenny Blake instead. So this is Cliff's girlfriend, and of course she gets involved in some of this mystery and suspense. It's a fun kids adventure movie. Music in The Rocketeer is really a great score. It's really got a great score and critically acclaimed by James Horner. We've talked about James Horner a lot. Biggest one was Titanic. We scored Titanic, that scene on the edge of the boat. Supposedly he had to write this score in less than 3 weeks. They kept changing in the edits. When the director and the editor, when they give you a different edit, it takes the timing off your whole score. So, when you think of that, everything is locked in the composer's mind. And if they add an extra 5 seconds, that's going to add an extra bar or two of music. When you have live players playing it, it takes a tremendous amount of discipline and calculation on, okay, so we put in 2 seconds. So you figure out musically how those 2 seconds is going to work. Depends on the tempo, right, of how fast the scene is. It's a nightmare. And this is kind of pre-computers when people were using sequencers. So this was done by hand and in the music studio. So I'd assume those 3 weeks were spent writing the themes, and he probably had some assistants helping, because you couldn't write that for orchestra without having people, assistants and copyists produce the score for a live scoring session. So I would think so, but still 3 weeks is not that much time at all. So let's take a look at your scene. This is the first time Cliff Secord, his friend is in this air show, and he is losing it up there, and he needs help. And in order for them to get help quickly, he says, that rocket pack that we found, I'm gonna use that. And Alan Arkin is kind of his Doc Brown character, his buddy friend who's wiser, and says, no, it's too dangerous. And he says, well, our friend's gonna die up there in that airplane unless I save him. So he gets the rocket, he goes up and saves him, and this is the first time that he's experiencing the rush and thrill of being using this rocket. Because at first, when they stumble upon it, they were going to return it because that would be the right thing to do. But now they use it to save this guy's life. But once it's used, it's in the headlines, and this story in the movie becomes famous. Everyone's after this rocket. Like I said, Timothy Dalton's character, and the FBI, and Howard Hughes, and all these, and the Nazis. A lot of responsibility. So this scene is kind of it's a really fun scene when he takes off on the rocket. He doesn't yet know how to engineer it and maneuver it. And so there's starts and stops and stuff. So let's take a look at the scene with the music.
Big gopher.
So you can tell it's kind of adventure-like, Disney-like. There's something, there's a little humor in it, him going through the cornfields, the locals looking at, obviously people think this is probably an alien from outer space. So the score it's an epic orchestral thing. This is not a Wes Anderson indie kind of thing. So the way it's filmed, it doesn't look like an indie film, and it looks like something that's kind of adventure-like. Why don't we take a look at the scene sans music? So it's got to be fun and adventure-like because I mean, it's fantasy. You know, this couldn't happen, right? I mean, we've looked at E.T., we've scored a lot of fantasy-like movies. So think of a score that would fit, that would be fantasy adventure-like, you know, Spielberg-like, George Lucas-like. I mean, don't send Star Wars because that's just too recognizable. But find something that I would think that it would be kind of epic sounding in the sense of using a big score, perhaps. You know, not solo piano, no voices, no lyrics. Something that adds to the momentum. I mean, if you ever are lost, just go back into the scene of, you know, and listen to the original score and think, well, what does this score sound like? And then, you know, find something that sounds just like that. I mean, there, I told you the secret and the formula. After 50 of these, I finally told you how to do it. And use the Google if you have to, or the YouTube. Okay, I love this movie. It's so much fun. I mean, I try not to get sentimental in this class, but it's got everything. It's got a pretty lady in it, handsome guy, Nazis, the FBI, old Hollywood, some great old Hollywood scenes. There's that, you know, dog cafe that was shaped like a bulldog in 1928, right on Washington Boulevard over here. That was stored in the 70s, but a good little and part of our LA history. Some of this little scene, this fun little movie. He crashes into the Hollywood sign where the land is taken off after that. Of course, that's not really how it happened, but yeah, I think it's fun. You should check it out.
So crazy James Horner wrote it in less than 3 weeks. I can't get over that. He had assistants and I'm sure people helping him, of course, but just a massive undertaking. So I can't wait to show you tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to look at what you guys came up with and see those results for the Rocketeer. So have a great rest of the day. We'll be back tomorrow. Okay, bye.